So I will go over some student examples of the Unit 2 outline. I will also show you how to use the Microsoft Editor in Microsoft Word in case you're not familiar with that. And I will also give you some tips to help you with writing your Unit 2 Business Research Proposal outline. So the first thing that I am going to show, we're going to come back to what you're seeing on the screen right now. But the first thing I want to show is an example. So I'm actually going to show you two examples of outlines that were submitted fall 2025. So the first outline, and these are actual student examples, I have their permission to show these examples. So I'm going to walk you through how this outline does a good job of conveying information, but I'll also show you some examples of how you can get a really great grade on a paper, even if it's not perfect. So I am definitely not looking for or even expect perfection on any of the papers, but there is a level of care and effort that I am looking for when I grade the papers, in addition to the things on the rubric or the checklist that I give you for every assignment. So this outline is covering a trucking company. So this student chose to write about a trucking company. So we have all of the regular information. There's the name, and there's an overview of what the company does, how long it's been in operation. Here, this is actually an example of a small thing that I called out on most of the papers. I tried to catch this on every paper, but for the where it says where it's located, just make sure to add an actual address. So for this example, the student tells us that the company is headquartered in Houston. So my comment for that would just be to add the address of a headquarters, and it can definitely be a made-up address like 123 Main Street. It doesn't matter, but just looking for the complete details. And here, this student did a really good job of giving an overview of what's going on in the business that required this company needing to hire more employees. This is one of the biggest issues that happens with this paper. If there's not a lot of time or thought dedicated to writing the response to this question, it does affect everything else that you write in the paper. So the business research proposal, the word proposal means that you're asking for permission for something, kind of like if you propose to another person, you're asking for their permission to marry them. So you can use that context to help you understand the purpose of this. So the business proposal needs to very clearly and completely give a story of what is going on in a business where this business is now so prosperous that they can afford and need to hire 10 new employees. So that means that you can't write, our business is growing, so we need new employees. That does not tell the reader exactly what's going on to justify the time that they're going to pay you to research, the time that you're going to take away from your daily jobs. Just thinking about this like if this was real life, the time that you will devote to this, the resources that you need to devote to this as a research project, you have to give support, right? So you can imagine like if you went to the doctor and you said, oh, my stomach is hurting and I'm having some stomach issues. And the doctor came back to you and said, oh, you're having some stomach issues because your stomach hurts. It's like it doesn't give you enough information. You would be very confused and probably frustrated, probably just really angry. If the doctor said, "Oh, I see that your stomach is hurting. Have you tried taking a walk?" Like it would be crazy for someone to give you that low level of explanation about what's going on. So for this context, you're writing to the CEO or the owner of the business, whatever, and also thinking about from that context, right? If you are the CEO and you're trying to run this business that is so prosperous that you can afford to hire 10 people, you probably don't know all of the day-to-day things that are going on. So in your proposal, you as the IT manager, you need to explain, like, hey, I know that you don't know day to day exactly what's going on with, this part, this one location in Houston or whatever. So because of that, I'm going to give you a backstory so you can totally understand what's going on, like the quote unquote boots on the ground situation. And so you can understand why we need this research and why we need these computers, right? So that is number one, by far, one of the biggest errors that I see. So in this case, this student wrote, the growth of economies in the Gulf Coast in recent years in manufacturing and energy industries has influenced a significant growth in shipping contracts. So if this student would have stopped right there would not be enough information. Because you can go ask any business owner, hey, okay, there is a new apartment complex that's being built next to your coffee shop. Just because there's a new apartment complex being built there, it doesn't automatically mean that the people will come to the coffee shop. It also doesn't mean that they will continue to come back to the coffee shop. We've all been to like a business and the service is terrible and the food is terrible and they close within a year or two. So just always remember, like, more people in an area does not automatically mean that a business will have more customers. We see businesses close all the time, especially in Houston, and there's millions of people here, right? So we need to think like the whole picture. What are you doing to engage with the people around you, the people who buy your service, the people who buy your whatever, to get them to be customers and also to come back to the point where you are so successful, you're now going to hire 10 people. So I hope that explanation is helpful. So let's read on to see what this student wrote in addition to the first part. The company has managed to cut an important long-term agreement with a new petrochemical provider in the Houston Ship Channel, and this needs dedicated fleet and 24/7 logistical services. This new business, added to the previous clients, doubling their volumes, has resulted in a workload that the current personnel are unable to handle. That is really great. Now, as a teacher, as a person who writes all the time, every day, all day, there are edits that I would make to this to make it more clear, to make it read a little bit differently. But again, I'm not looking for perfection. Even though this was a 10 out of 10 paper, literally, I am not looking for perfection. I'm looking for complete thoughts being conveyed in a way that I can understand. And even though I would personally edit this in a different way, it doesn't take away from my ability to understand what the student is saying. And that is the point of writing anything from your text messages to your business proposals, to your outlines, to your resume, or whatever. Your purpose is to convey clearly what you are trying to say. If your writing doesn't do that, it does not meet the purpose of writing something down, right? So we know from this explanation that this company has gained a new shipping contract. That is a really big deal, right? That's a clear connection to not just growth in the area. Now we have something very specific. We have a shipping contract, and it's a long-term contract. That's a really important thing. If it was only for 5 months or something, maybe you would not need to hire, 10 people. But if it's a long-term agreement with a new petrochemical provider, we also have like this theme of realism. We know within Houston there are lots of petrochemical providers and companies like Chevron and Exxon. These places all are existing in Houston. So there's also a really good level of realism that's in this example that also helps convey the students' intent and the level of thought that they put into this paper. So you can also, take some time and read it, think about it some more. But those are some things to help you when you're writing your own paper, to help you focus on giving a full and complete idea, right? Okay, so going down, and there were a couple of other things I also wanted to mention this. So for this, what specific job tasks do the newly hired employees do? So we know that they are logistics coordinators, and you can use your imagination about what a logistics coordinator would do for a company like this. So we have a list. They also have the role of overseeing shipping schedules, emailing, sending messaging applications, updating the freight tracking systems, taking shipping documentation, and liaising with clients and the warehouse staff. Super great. Super great. You don't have to list everything like from a job ad, but give the reader, again, the reader is the CEO, the reader is the owner. Give them an idea of like, okay, most CEOs have not memorized what each person in the company does. So you're giving them like an overview. Hey, these are the people that we're hiring here. This is what they're going to do. And this question, how exactly will the new employees use the computers? This is to help bolster your argument. So your proposal is supposed to be a document that is persuasive, right? You need evidence to persuade people. Think about like a court case. If you want to win your court case, you can't just go in there and say, give me my money because they owe me money. You need proof, you need receipts, you need documentation. So all of the explanations you can imagine as like your proof, your receipts of why this is important to research. So the student writes, they will work with laptops which are issued by the company at the office, as well as with some at home with hybrid shifts. Okay, so now we understand, okay. The required software will be freight management system developed by the company. Very good. Microsoft Office Suite, a CRM, Adobe Acrobat Reader, and so forth. So for this example, I would just say you can make up or list the exact freight management system developed by the company just to add a little bit more specificity, right? Make things specific to this business. If you write, they will use computers to do their jobs, that is not enough information. We need specific information. Okay, scrolling down, let's see. Just looking for other examples of things that were kind of commonly missed in other examples. So for the research objectives, write 3 things you want to accomplish by conducting the research. In this example, they would like to find out the names or brands or whatever you can write it either way, of at least 3 laptop models available in the market of various vendors that fit the minimum technical specifications of our key software. I would just say here, instead of writing our key software, be specific. Compare the overall cost of ownership, purchase price, projected life cycle, and warranty, okay? And test user experience variables. So quality of the keyboards, readability of the screen, portability, and battery life to guarantee high level of productivity and job satisfaction. So again, For each of these, I personally would write maybe a little bit different. I am intentionally not telling you what I would write because my objective is not to make you into me. My objective is to help you think critically so you can then take this information as learning out into your real life and real world and apply it where it's applicable to you. So these are really good objectives, right? Some a little bit less specific than I would write, but still overall it gives me the idea of what this person is seeking to understand and find out about the computers that they need to buy for this company. And let's see, I think that I can move on to the next. Yeah, okay. So I'll move on to the next example. I have two examples that I wanted to show you. Okay, so this one is about a department store. I wanted to give you two examples that were different topics. So this one, again, I would just say to make sure to add an address where the store is located. For all of the people who are deciding to write about a department store, if you decide, for example, to write about Macy's, remember you are an IT manager at like one location. So don't write about all of the Macy's in the United States. That would be a really, really, really super big thing to write about for a college class, right? So keep it very simple. Pick one store in Houston or wherever, it doesn't matter. But pick one store. Imagine that you are the IT manager at that one store. And that will make it so much easier and simpler to write about this stuff. So let's look at their justification. Over the last year, the store has experienced steady growth due to three major factors. This is already great because this student is giving not only one, but three reasons why. They are expanding enough to need new employees. The expansion of its online sales platform, which has increased revenue by 15% in the last quarter. This paper is one of the only ones, maybe there were maybe two or three others, but this is one of the only ones that included any type of metrics in the explanation. And in real life, including the metrics in the business world, that's really, really great because it goes from do this because I said so or do this because I think so to do this because we have proof that we need to do this. And that increases the level of persuasion. The addition of new product lines, including electronics and home goods, which has attracted a broader customer base. Fantastic. You're offering something new that definitely could attract more people to come into your store. And three, an improved customer loyalty program, which has led to higher customer retention and repeat sales. This is really great. Think about, so a customer loyalty program, if you're not familiar with that terminology, think about like when you go to HEB and you have coupons that are on your app. That's an example of a customer loyalty program. If you go to Starbucks and you have the Starbucks app and you get stars, like when you ring up, you get 1 star for every dollar or whatever it is. That's an example of a customer loyalty program. And that works because you think, oh, I want coffee. Oh, I have stars. Or, oh, I will get some type of reward for going to Starbucks. So I will go to Starbucks instead of going to another place. That's an example of a customer loyalty program, right? So that in real life is a really, really great way to keep people coming back to your store. So in real life, since that works, if you include it here in your explanation, that's a really great way to add support for your argument that you need more sales associates. So here, this student decided to write that they're going to hire sales associates. And then they go on to detail exactly what they will do, exactly how they're going to use the computers, and so forth, right? So you can see that the business problem is very well explained and laid out, and it's easy to follow. Another part that I wanted to touch on in this example is the limitations. So the expected results and feasibility. For the limitations of research, I want you to think about in real life what would affect your ability to conduct research. Don't think about like the limitations of a actual computing device, because that's not the same thing. Just think about yourself if you are researching this as an IT manager. What are some things that could happen to negatively affect your research or negatively affect what you can find out? So in this example, vendor response times for price quotes may delay comparisons. This is super valid, super realistic. How many times have you emailed someone or tried to contact someone about something and they didn't get back to you for days or weeks? Very, very realistic. You don't have to think of like really outside of the box kind of stuff. Just use your imagination and think very realistically. Limited availability of demo models for testing. So on a lot of submissions, I just left a little note to make sure that you just write about going to like a vendor site like a Best Buy or something like that. You can go write about going there to take a look at a computer, pick it up, and see how heavy it is. For those of you who are writing about computers that will be used like in a mobile way or like on the road or something like that, the weight of the computer, you would not want to go buy yourself a 10-pound computer, if you have to lug it around every day. So you can write about going to like a Best Buy or Apple or whatever to check out the specs and things, but do not write about buying computers that you're going to keep as part of testing. The reason why is because we're going to just say like a small business or like one store, that would not be realistic in real life, right? Like, so if you owned a trucking company, and even if you had 2 locations or 3 locations, you would not go and spend thousands of dollars to buy 5 or 6 computers just for you to test it out. You should be able to use the information that you know about what your employees need and the specs, so the specifications of a device that you can find out online or find out in person at Best Buy. Those 2 things should be enough to let you know if the computer will work or not. That's kind of the good thing about writing about computers. It's a little bit black and white and a little bit easier to kind of understand. And then lastly, changing laptop prices due to sales or supply chain issues. Very, very realistic, especially nowadays with a lot of the changes going on with supply chain issues and sales. So you see how these are just very simple, not overly complicated, very realistic. All right, so those are the things that I wanted to share with you about these outlines, and you can use this information, and I hope that you will, to write your proposal and make sure that the information is there. Alrighty, so now we're going to move on to this. Okay, so the next part of this video, I would like to go over some additional tips to help you with writing your paper, your Unit 2 Business Research Proposal paper. So in order to come up with this list, I compared an A paper with a not so great paper. And I cannot show you, I will not show you an example of a not so great paper because I don't want to, harm anyone or embarrass anyone or anything like that. But I did go through and I just made a list of things that the A paper had and the not so great paper had. And I will post this list in Canvas as well so you can check it out. So I won't read all of this to you, but I'll just go over very briefly some of the things that I noticed. The first thing is professionalism and effort. Across the board, this is like the biggest thing that people seem to struggle with is writing in a professional way. So when you write in the business context, it needs to have the business tone. It's not like talking to a friend. It's not like, sending a text message or sharing a meme. It needs to be in a professional tone, and it needs to be clear and kind of get to the point. Imagine if you're reading something and the person has written the paper like they are having a casual conversation with you. That would be very frustrating to you because remember, you're writing to a very busy CEO or business owner. They don't have all day to try to figure out or interpret what you wrote. So writing with some level of professionalism and getting to the point. This is not the type of paper where maybe like in high school you had to meet like 1,000 word count and stuff like that. Business writing is not like that. You need to just get to the point and use complete sentences, formal business phrasing, correct grammar, capitalize your letters, all of the things that you can remember from like grade school grammar, English writing lessons. All of those things convey professionalism, right? So, professionalism versus good effort. Your tone is professional, your writing is polished, you have complete sentences, complete thoughts. Your phrasing is professional, and I'll show you some examples of that in a moment. You're using correct grammar, so like I said, capitalize your letters, make sure your verbs agree, all of that stuff, very good. You have clear evidence of time, thought, and revision. And so the examples that I just went over with you show evidence that this person did not sit down at 11:50 and try to crank this out. So no shade, but usually writing this kind of stuff, even for people who write every day, all day, you need to take some time. And it feels like a real business proposal written by someone who understands the purpose and the audience. Heavy focus on the audience. You're not having a casual conversation with a friend. You are writing to a CEO or business owner in a professional setting. So not the business owner who mistreats his workers. You're writing to a person who is an upstanding and professional, together kind of person. I hope that helps. So, college level writing should sound polished, intentional, and professional. Imagine that you're submitting the document to an executive and you want to make a good impression. And again, I will not read all of these to you, but I'll just, kind of quickly go through this. For content depth and development, this is where you can actually use a little bit of your imagination to build out the details in your paper. So your paper should provide a detailed and believable scenario about company growth tied to real-world business trends. Your paper should also explain clearly and completely why the company is prosperous and include a full story. And connect the business context to the research needed, and this connection needs to be logical and persuasive. So, realism, specificity, and realism. So, a good, like an A paper, even a B paper, will use the specific job titles, so just not new employees, but specific job titles, software names, tools, costs, all of the details are specific to whatever business you choose to write about. Your paper should also outline what each new employee will do, that is support for your argument that you need to research. And your cost and time calculations should be realistic. In one paper, I think that the cost calculation was something like $30,000 or something. And if you take just a moment to think like, oh, is that realistic? Like would if I was working at a mom and pop trucking company, would they realistically want to spend $30,000 for me to research, not to buy computers, but just to research? No. So use your brains. I know you guys are very smart, and you just need to slow down a little bit and be realistic. Strong papers use specific and realistic details that make the reader believe the situation could happen in the real world. Very, very important. Organization and clarity. So all of your paragraphs, your phrasing should be clear, make sense, easy to understand. Remember, I am reading this as a person who, I'm not sitting here talking to you. I'm not looking at your face. I'm not using anything other than what you've written on the paper to determine if you understand the assignment. It's not about feelings or how you feel about this class or how I feel about grading the papers. It's just black and white. What's on the paper? Did what you write, is it logical? Is it clear? Is it easy to understand? Great. If not, make some edits. So remember, good organization helps your reader follow your reasoning, even if the content is correct. If you have poor structure, the paper will feel incomplete, and I also will not understand what you're trying to convey. Critical thinking and analysis. I think at this point I've kind of gone over this a lot of times over and over and over, but I want you to check out this explanation. And just remember that your proposal should show your ability to think like a manager, not a student filling in the blanks. I would like you to think as realistically as possible. Mechanics and sentence structure. We'll go over this in just a moment when I show you this tool in Microsoft Word, but at the collegiate level, I think it would be insulting to you if I went over like how to capitalize your letters and things like that right now. You guys know how to do that. Just make sure that it's in your paper. And use your professional tone. Make sure that your grammar is there and it's correct. Your sentences make sense. Read the paper aloud to yourself, and that will actually help you catch a lot of your errors. So mechanics affect credibility. If your doctor gave you a report about your stomach ache or whatever, and it had no punctuation, none of the letters were capitalized, you couldn't make sense of what they wrote, you would think, oh, is this the right doctor for me? Because this doctor is not showing me any levels of professionalism. So that would affect their credibility. A business proposal with grammatical errors suggests lack of care or professionalism. And then for the works cited page, I will share a link to just show you the right way to cite your papers. This is not, like if your works cited page isn't perfectly formatted, this will not be a make or break for a good grade versus a bad grade. But it is important to do correctly, so I won't spend much time here. But okay, so the last part I wanted to show you was just briefly how to use the editor function in Microsoft Word. So I have opened Microsoft Word in the browser format. So because I know everyone will have access to this. You may not have access to the desktop version of this, but if you have a UHD account, you have access to I think it's called Microsoft 365, and you have access to Word, okay? So this function here, not sure if people, know about this, but this function called the editor can help you with editing your documents. I have to address one comment that I received earlier this semester. The computer does not do all of the work for you. So if I go through here and address all of these spelling and grammar corrections that Microsoft Office or Microsoft Word tells me, that does not mean that this is an error-free paragraph. You still have to read your sentences to make sure that they make sense, because you can write a sentence that technically does not make sense and the editor might not catch it, right? So you cannot solely rely on what you see written elsewhere, what what the editor says is right or wrong. You have to also rely on things that you've been taught about, basic writing mechanics. So to use the editor, and again, this is just one part of what you need to do to make sure your paper is, well written. You can use the editor by clicking, so you can kind of toggle it on and off, and then it will, let's see. It did not give me an editor score for some reason, but sometimes it'll give you an editor score, so like 80% or whatever, but it'll be out of 100. And it'll show you some corrections that it thinks you can make and refinements, things like that. So you can play with this. I won't go through all of this, but I'll just show you. So for spelling, it sees here that this is a lowercase I when it knows a standalone I is a word and it needs to be capitalized, and it will go through. Okay, so see, we have our score starting to appear. It should go through, so you can click, okay? And briefly about this example, this is a really, really just overly bad example. No one in the class submitted this at all, so I just wanted to make that clear. This is just something I made up for the purposes of this demonstration. So please do not think your classmates turned this in, because no one did. Okay, going back over here to, let's just say, spelling. So if you go through, it will find some examples of misspelled words. So you can say going to, okay? And it will continue to calculate, right? So you get the idea. For grammar, it will also do something similar. So instead of I've been here 3 years, maybe you'd say that in conversation and, okay. But for turning in your college paper, you don't want to say that. You want to say, I have been here. Personally, I don't love I have been here. So I would say I have worked. I've worked here. To me, that sounds better. But I have been here was technically correct, right? I don't grade your papers to that level of detail with exactly how I would write it. But I do look to see if the grammar is correct, just in general, okay? So I've worked here. Let's see what it says. Here, 3 years. So this says I've worked here for 3 years. So you can go through and you can see your score is going up. And let's look at formality. So I personally will not mark off if you use don't, but I do personally write with the full words. I don't love contractions for professional, formal writing, okay? And then also another way, let's see, so our score has gone up. Another way that you can use this is if you click, so it says click to view suggestions. We see, and it even tells you double check the capitalization here. It might be right, it might be wrong, but we know at the beginning of the sentence you need a capital letter. There you go. And it helps you find the issues. So after you've done this, the next thing I would suggest that you do is to read your paper aloud to yourself. I know that you may not want to do that, but doing that will help you so much with your writing, okay? And I just want to make sure I've covered everything. Okay, so in this video, I'll just recap what we covered. So I showed you 2 outline examples, and we talked about the good content, good examples in these outlines that will then eventually appear in your very good proposals that I can't wait to hear. So I showed you that one, and I also showed you another example. We went over this list of tips and comparisons to show you an A paper versus a not so great paper. And we also talked about how to use just one tool to help you with editing your papers, which is the built-in editor in Microsoft. And definitely, use this and kind of, just have some fun with it, see how it works for you. And it's built into Microsoft Word, right? So it's not an external thing that you have to worry about any rules against it or anything like that. It's built right into Microsoft Word. And that is it. So I hope that you found this video to be helpful. If you have questions about your specific paper or anything that I went over in this video, just let me know. And I look forward to reading your proposals. Thank you and take care.